the previous question that was on the screen was asking me about the fact that 247 just did their updated proprietary rankings. So not their composite rankings, but their own 247 individual site rankings. And like a bunch of Miami players, a bunch of Miami commits, actually every commit took a drop. I think there was one player who like went up by one spot. Everybody else dropped at least one or more. I think that it's bullshit. I mean, be offended by the language or don't. I think that it is just a coordinated effort on the part of different recruiting outlets that, I mean, Chance Williams, people took screenshots the morning before he committed and then looked at his rating that same afternoon. And how a player, when there's no event going on and no rankings changing and nothing moving, how a player drops after committing to Miami exclusively every single time. It's just a coordinated effort. I mean, it is. You cannot say, you know, you cannot prove to me otherwise. And I mean, you got guys who didn't play in the spring and they rose 50 places. Jalen Knighton from Deerfield Beach High School. If I'm calling names, I'm calling names. He got injured on the first day of spring, didn't play another rep anywhere at all, and he rose up in the rankings. Why? Because he's down to Florida State and Ohio State. So all of a sudden he's a better player than when Miami was recruiting him. You know, Michael Redding III, like I said, he went out and showed out at the opening, which you would think, okay, is a thing that, yeah, you know, you have all the guys there, you know, all the people who do the ratings for 247. You would think, okay, yeah, he put on the show in front of them and that would impact positively his ranking. Wrong, dropped. Like, I'm sick of it. And this is where it comes to the point of you have to do your own evaluations. You have to trust your own eyes and not necessarily only go by what the rating sites say because it's crazy. I mean, there are guys who missed entire years of high school and come back and, you know, as a recruit and signed and they're 4 stars and 5 stars. But, you know, Robert Burns, who was a 5-star and put on one of the greatest shows ever in the history of recruiting combines, he's a 3-star by the time he signs. Jonathan Garvin was a 3-star, but like late at the signing day, bumped up to a 4-star, and he's one of the most dynamic players in America. Like Dominic Mammarelli, like, okay, he had a shoulder injury. Cool, but he's still 6'4", 235, and he can block, and he's a pass-catching dynamo up the seam from a tight end position. But he's a 3-star all of a sudden just because he had a labrum issue as a high school junior. It is infuriating. And that is going to obviously, I mean, because recruiting rankings on these websites and the composite and those things, like you use those as fodder for, you know, content for us. And then, you know, the coach is saying, hey, you know, come be one of the best. And like those conversations come up. And I just think it's asinine that, you know, every player who's committed to Miami or being strongly pursued by Miami saw a drop in their rating, but anybody associated with Clemson, Georgia, or Alabama all of a sudden just rose up. There's even a kid, I forget his goddarn name. He played quarterback in high school as a junior. He didn't even play spring. He ran 10-3 in the 100. He played well at a couple 7-on-7 things. He went up 300-something spots. He's a 5-star now all of a sudden. What? Based upon what? There's a clear Miami bias, and once is an accident, twice is a trend, 3 times is evidence, but we're working on year 10 of this. Get in where you fit in, do what you want to do. I mean, that's all I have to say about that. Yeah. Anyway.
We'll say, playing devil's advocate to a certain degree, and you know so much more about the recruiting game than I do, but the top 8 to 20 classes that program and the coaching staff brought in over the past 4 to 5 years, and that's generally where they've been. I remember it topping out at 8 in the rankings, and I think 20 or 22 was the lowest. Those, aside from the 2017 team, those have not translated to teams that have ranked that high generally in the rankings. So the inverse would seem to be true, though.
The inverse
meaning that the classes were rated higher coming out of high school than what they were able to produce on the field.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that you don't realize potential doesn't mean that the potential didn't exist. You know what I mean? Because recruiting is all about potential. You have to develop it. You have to eventually turn potential into performance. That's what I've been talking about with N'Kosi Perry. Preview to the remix, I believe that his player profile comes out either tomorrow or Friday. And that line is in there. Because, yeah, you do have to turn potential into performance, but that doesn't mean that they weren't high caliber recruits. That means that you didn't get that out of them. You know what I mean? If a guy runs 4.3 and then you're not able to get him to run 4.3 anymore, that's part on him, but part on you of not unlocking that potential, because we've already seen him run 4.3. So I know he has the capability to run 4.3 or similar. But you get what I'm saying. If you have some kind of demonstrated output on the field and he doesn't reach that again, that's upon you for not putting him in a position and training him to do that. It doesn't mean he didn't have the potential to do that consistently, because he did it intermittently, because we recruited him because of that intermittent show that he put on. But yeah.
Dennis, I see you with Alonzo Highsmith. Good call right there. Rob Chudzinski comes to mind as well at tight end. Greg Olson, I don't know where he ranked on the various first, second, or third teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Mr. Ardois put him on like third team. But again, that was just a Canes fan who put up the second and third teams just to show the amount of talent on all of those teams. Austin Canes asked a question: do I think that academics really play a role when recruiting, or when recruits are picking their colleges? I think it does for some. I definitely do think it does for some. It doesn't for everybody, and there's different things. You know, it's, if you go back to like, what was that, NCAA 13, that had all those different, like, because I like that recruiting interaction on the video game, but it had all the different pitches you could have. You know, proximity to home, championship caliber, you know, professional development, all those kind of things, yada, yada, yada. I think that honestly, those things matter. And like having, I mean, it's not a secret. I mean, it kind of was an unspoken thing before, but like, I used to work at a high school. I used to work at Miramar High School for 11 years. So I saw all those recruits. I know all those guys personally: Jermaine Grace, Malcolm Lewis, Ivan McCartney, Tracy Howard, Geno Smith. I wasn't really close with Geno, but like, I mean, you can throw me a nod, you know, and say I saw him at Aventura a couple of years ago. He knows who I am. So I say all that to say, with all those different guys, like, there was different things that mattered to them. You know, even for the guys who went to a FCS team or a D2, there's different things that matter to them as the deciding factor, them and their families per se. So do I think that academics plays a role? Yes, invariably. Do I think that academic plays a role for everybody? Absolutely not, because it's just not a thing that they worry about. You know, some people, okay, cool, I can go anywhere and get that liberal arts degree. I can go anywhere and get a communication arts degree and pass with a 2.3, you know, while I still ball out because I want to be here to play. So yeah, that's my answer. Do I think that academics matters? Yes, to everybody. No, just because, you know, there's different strokes for different folks, and, you know, everything, you know, what they value changes on an in-person basis.